All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is your last video of the year. How about that? Congratulations. It's been a crazy time for all of us. I want you all to know that I will miss you, and it was wonderful getting to know all of you this year. And not very many students are actually watching these videos at this point, but I hope you do. And you can think of me fondly as maybe your favorite math teacher ever. Just kidding. But hopefully it was a fairly painless experience. So that's what I try for. So today we are just looking at some rational functions and rational equations. Again, we've done all of this before. It's just really good review. These are excellent things to know in your brain. Okay, so rational functions, rational fractional. So you can see we've got a little fraction going on here. And they are graphs. So we have our basic rational function, which is those crazy L-shaped things. But what's really important is that we have a vertical asymptote, which I always abbreviate VA, or we have a horizontal, HORIZONTAL, horizontal asymptote for these kinds of equations. And these are simplified rational functions. So this is all your equations are going to be given to you in a very simple form like this. And we also get domain. So this is domain, D for domain, and denominator domain. So the domain always comes from the denominator, whatever that denominator happens to be. Hopefully most of them will be simplified. But it is possible that you might see like 3 over 2x minus 4, where we would want to, if they asked, hey, what is the excluded value? LUDED. What is the excluded value? You would get that from solving the denominator, setting it equal to 0 and solving for x. So you would add the 4 to both sides and then divide by 2 to get x all by itself. And you would see that x is not allowed to equal 4 divided by 2, which is 2, because we aren't allowed to have that denominator equal 0. And so this is how we find the excluded value. And it's normally, if it's very simple like this denominator, then it's very easy. It's just x cannot equal h. We would just have to move the h over. So again, if you imagine setting it equal to 0, we would add the h, and you'd get x cannot equal h. And so the denominator domain gives you those excluded values. It's really important, comes from the denominator. And the vertical asymptote, again, also comes from that denominator. A vertical asymptote is a vertical line. It's always x equals a number, and in this case, it's x equals whatever the h happens to be, the opposite, really. And the horizontal asymptote is always this outside value, and it's always y equals some number. In this case, y equals whatever that outside number is. Your IXL program will need these equations if it asks for the equation of the vertical asymptote. We're also going to solve rational fractional equations, which most of these is just cross multiply and then solve from there. So we'll see what happens with those. Answer the following. We've got a couple of pictures here. Well, one picture, a couple of things we want to answer. And so all of this are things that you will get asked, and it's going to usually ask for just one thing. So read carefully, read slowly. I know when I was doing this skill, I got a few wrong just because I didn't actually read the question. I was making assumptions and not really reading. So first of all, we have a lovely little picture of a rational function. You can see it's got these weird L shapes, which is a very simple rational function. And so first I'm going to look at the horizontal asymptote. So the horizontal asymptote is a horizontal line. So it was going from left to right. And it's this line that sort of divides these two L shapes right in the middle. It sort of splits them apart. So if you could fit a line in there, you would see like, hey, it seems like there's this line that's horizontal that's sort of splitting these two things apart. And that is the horizontal asymptote. And you can see that it's going through 1, 2 on my y-axis. And so the equation of the horizontal asymptote would be y equals 2. And this is what you would have to type in to IXL, y equals 2. So again, it's crossing 2 on the y-axis, therefore y equals 2. The vertical asymptote would be a vertical line. Again, that is separating these two L shapes from one another. So I want the vertical line that doesn't touch the vertical line that splits them apart. So that's going to be right about here. We have this vertical line, and you can see that it's crossing 4 on the x-axis. So the vertical asymptote would be the equation x equals 4. So make sure you read, make sure you're answering the question that is being asked. So take your time and read carefully. So given a graph, it's pretty easy to see the vertical asymptote and see the horizontal asymptote. We can also do it given an equation. So again, we want to answer the same questions here. So first they want to know what is the vertical asymptote. So the vertical asymptote, if you're given an equation, the vertical asymptote comes from the denominator. Because again, the vertical asymptote says x equals, just like this. Well, where's your x? Your x is right here underneath, so from the denominator. So our vertical asymptote, we would say, hey, take your denominator and set it equal to 0, and then just isolate x. So we would want to subtract 2. So we get x equals -2, and that's the equation of our vertical asymptote. It comes right from the denominator. The horizontal asymptote is a y equals equation, and it always comes from this outside number, whatever it is. So our horizontal asymptote in this case is y equals the 5. So y equals 5 is the equation of the horizontal asymptote. So if you're given a function, if you're given an equation, just using that equation to find the horizontal asymptote or the vertical asymptote is pretty easy. The vertical asymptote comes from the denominator. The horizontal asymptote is that number that's on the outside. And if there's no number there, then it's 0. What is the excluded value of this above equation? Again, the excluded value is what we're not allowed to be. And we're not allowed to divide by 0. So x plus 2 is not allowed to be a 0. And again, that's a very easy equation to solve. We're just going to move the 2 over. Whoops. So we get x is not allowed to be -2. 0 minus 2 is -2. So I think they just asked for the excluded value, and I think I just had to type in the -2. They already have the x cannot equal in there. So vertical asymptote and excluded value are pretty much the same thing. You can also type this equation into your calculator and graph it if you like the graph better. So please remember you can do that. So I will show you. It's a little hard to see sometimes. I'm going to go ahead and go to menu and go to graph and type in this equation. Delete F1, yes. So we would do 3 divided by, you need to put parentheses around your denominator. So, and then we have our x plus 2. And then outside those parentheses. So this tells the calculator that x plus 2 is in the denominator. We're dividing by the whole x plus 2. And then we can draw that. You can see it's a little hard to see on the calculators, but here's our horizontal asymptote. Again, it looks just about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like 5, but that would be a guess from this view. And the vertical asymptote, the line that splits them, does look like it's going through -2 there. That one's a little bit easier to see. On the TI, if you wanted to do the same thing, you could. So again, we could go to y equals. You want to make sure that these plot 1, plot 2, plot 3 are not highlighted. And if they were highlighted, you would want to go up there and press enter to unhighlight it. Okay. Otherwise, you're going to get an error message. So again, we're going to do 3 divided by, and again, you still have to tell the calculator everything that's in the denominator, x plus 2. So that's telling the calculator, hey, all of this stuff is in the denominator. And then the plus 5 is not in the denominator. And then we can do a zoom standard is a great place to start. Again, it's kind of hard to visualize, but it does appear that we have a horizontal asymptote going through 5 and a vertical asymptote at -2. So again, using your calculator can be really, really helpful. You can also see, actually, for both calculators, the excluded value is actually, if you know it, it's easy to see too. Both your calculators have a trace. You can see on my Casio, the trace is in yellow right above F1. So we would do shift trace F1 and type in our excluded value, or what we think our excluded value is. So I'm just going to type in -2. And we type in -2 and then hit execute. You can see we get error. And if I use trace on my TI, which is right here, trace, and type in -2, again, you can see that there is actually nothing there. It's literally undefined, not definable. There's nothing that I can define to put there, is what that means. So there is no value. There's nothing there. It is undefined, and that's really what that means. Now, to solve the rational equation, we do want to check our answers. And really, it's a good idea just to look and see beforehand, are there any excluded values? So if we've got a variable in the denominator, then those would give us excluded values. There aren't any variables in the denominator here, so we don't have any excluded values, which is really nice. But over here, we have a variable in the denominator. And right off the bat, that's going to tell me that f cannot equal -7. And also from this denominator, f cannot equal -2. And anything else would be just fine. I don't care about the numerators. We care about denominators, domain denominators. And these are exclusions from the domain. Every other f value works just fine. So these are good things to think about right off the bat. If we get an answer, f equals -2, no, it can't be. We know that would be a false solution. So here I have what's called a proportion. And anytime we have a fraction equal to a fraction, the easiest thing to do is to cross multiply. So we're going to multiply 10 to the other side. So it becomes 10 times h plus 2. And we're going to multiply 5 to the other side. 5 times h minus 1. And if you write it in this order, or maybe you're going to trade sides, it doesn't matter. You can flip your equal sign around itself. It totally doesn't matter. We do need to distribute. So you will distribute your 10 and distribute your 5. 10 times h is 10h. 10 times 2 is 20. 5 times h is 5h. 5 times -1 is -5. And then we need to collect like terms. So I want to go ahead and move this 5h over here to the left-hand side so it can be with his friend. So we're going to subtract 5h. So we get 10 minus 5h's is 5h's plus 20 equals -5. And then I've got a 20. I want to move it to the right-hand side, so I'm going to subtract 20. We need our letters together. When I used to teach Algebra 1, I always said letters on the left. I didn't give my students an option, letters to the left. So if you had a letter on the right-hand side, you needed to move the whole term over. 5h equals negative 25. And then to get h by itself, we undo the multiply by dividing. Whoops, we're going to divide by 5, not the h. We want to get rid of the 5. Leave the h alone. All right, so we get negative 25 divided by 5 is negative 5. And this is probably the answer. These aren't too complicated. You could plug it back in if you wanted to check, but I don't actually think you need to do that. So let's see. If I were to check, then I would take negative 5 and I would drop it in for these h's. So negative 5 plus 2, and that's supposed to equal negative 5 minus 1 over 10. Let's see. I'm running out. All my pens are running out of ink. All right. Negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3 over 5. Over here, negative 5 minus 1 is negative 6 over 10. Question, are those equal? Yes, they are, because this one reduces. We can divide by 2, and it is negative 3/5. So the left side and the right side balance. So that works perfectly. All right, right off the bat here, we know we have some excluded values. F is not allowed to be, but we need to go ahead and solve this. And again, the easiest thing to do is to cross multiply. So we're going to take this f plus 2 denominator and multiply it to the numerator, f minus 5. And that's going to be equal to taking our denominator and multiplying it. F plus 7 times the whole numerator. Please use parentheses properly. And from here, we need to FOIL or distribute these together. So first times first is f squared. The outside, negative 5 times f is negative 5f. The inside is 2f, positive 2f. And last times last, 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. We need to do the same thing on the right-hand side. First times first. That's what the f stands for. F times f is f squared. O is outside terms. The outer terms, f times negative 4. I for the inside terms, 7 times f, positive 7f. And L is last times last. 7 times negative 4 is negative 28. Before I do anything, I want to combine some like terms. So I have negative 5f and 2f, which would be negative 3f's. And on the right-hand side, negative 4f and 7f. Now, you'll notice these both have an f squared term, and those would be like terms, so if I tried to move them together, f squared minus f squared is 0. And again, f squared minus f squared is 0. So they actually cancel out, which is really, really nice. All the problems that I did on this skill, they did cancel out. So that really makes life easier for us. Now I do need to get my letters on the left again. So I am going to go ahead and subtract 3f to move it to the left-hand side. Negative 3 and a negative 3 is a negative 6f. And I want to go ahead and move the 10 to the right-hand side. So we get negative 6f equals negative 28 plus 10 is negative 18. And then we can go ahead and divide. Oops, I'm answering the question. Get rid of that negative 6. So we get f equals 18 divided by 6 is 3. Negative divided by negative is positive. So we get 3 for our value for f. And that should work just fine. I really would be worried if it was one of my excluded values. When you do this IXL skill, they tell you there might be one solution or two solutions. But you can see we aren't going to have two solutions for this one because it got canceled out. I didn't have any where I had to double bubble. But if, it might be possible that you have to double bubble, but it didn't come up for me when I did these. But if it was quadratic, you would need to set everything to one side. So we'll set equal to 0 and then maybe factor and then solve from there. So keep that in mind if it was quadratic. If you need help, please send me an email. I'm happy to set up a personal Zoom session. We can chat via Zoom if you need any help at all. But right now, this is it. What you need to do. Oh, we have one more. Look at that. I didn't even realize. All right, last one. So right off the bat, I'm going to look for any excluded values. So here we have h plus 10 cannot equal 0. So I'm going to move the 10 over, which basically says, hey, h is not allowed to be negative 10. And then from here, same thing, h is not allowed to be negative 5. So just looking at those denominators, we want to pay attention right off the bat. I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply. So we have h plus 5 times the numerator. And that's supposed to equal h plus 10 times the numerator. Again, FOIL. You can see these are just a little more challenging. First times first, h times 2h is 2h squared. The outside would be negative 4h. The inside would be positive 10h, and last times last is negative 20. On the right-hand side, h times 2h is 2h squared. H times 6, positive 6h. 10 times 2h, positive 20h. And 10 times 6 is 60. Before I do anything, I want to look to how to simplify my equation. Negative 4h plus 10 gives me 6 positive h's left over. And here, 6h plus 20 would be 26 h's. Again, I need to combine like terms. So if I think about moving my 2h squared to his friend over here, 2h squared minus 2h squared is 0. And here again is also 0. So they again cancel each other out, which is super nice. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 26h, again, to get my letters to the left. So that one cancels out. 6, oh, look at me, I wrote it backwards. 26, there we go. Negative 26 plus 6 would be negative 20 h's. Minus 20 equals a 60 left over here. And I'm going to go ahead and add 20 to the right-hand side. That's 80. And I can divide both sides by negative 20. So we get h equals negative 4. And it's not either one of these answers. So there's just one answer. And that's all I have to put in. So again, this is what you're doing. It's good practice foiling binomials here, combining like terms. These mostly seem to be resolving to a linear equation to solve, which is nice. But again, if you need help, please send me an email. I'm happy to help you. We can do Zoom, or I can just email you pointers. Email for help. And send me a picture of your work. And I think that's probably the best thing I can tell you to do is you should be showing your work. So whether or not you made your own little handy dandy whiteboard using just a sheet protector and a piece of paper, and you're showing your work on your whiteboard, you do need to show work. Nobody can do this stuff in your head. I'm sorry, I don't have any Einsteins in my class. You all need to show your work. I love you all to death, but you do not do this stuff in your head. You have to show your work. So if you need me any help, please send me an email. Send me a picture of your work, and I can help you through it. And you can also, email me, or we could set up a Zoom if we need to for some one-on-one tutoring, which I'm happy to do. So this is your last video. I hope you all had a great year, and I hope you learned a lot. I know you all really, really did learn a lot. We didn't do quite a bit fourth quarter, but don't worry, it's none of the stuff I think is important anyway. So, in terms of things you really, really needed to know, we learned them. Thank you so much. Please work on IXL every so often this summer. Just because you're not in school doesn't mean you can't refresh your memory. Do the old, the A skills for algebra 2, then the B skills, then the C skills. Just do one every other day just to keep the skills fresh in your brain. It would be really good for you, so that you don't forget everything over the summer. Folks, have a happy summer, even if it's in isolation. Thank God for Amazon Prime and Netflix and Disney Plus. So have a great summer, you guys.